After this video, you're going to have a full essay plan for A Christmas Carol that you can genuinely link to any question you get in the exam. And if you watch the full thing, I promise you, you will feel so prepared for A Christmas Carol, regardless of what comes up, even if you haven't done any revision for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a general point and I'm going to show you how it will link to different characters. So the first point we're going to look at is Dickens delivers a scathing indictment, meaning a criticism, of Victorian social inequality, condemning a system that dehumanizes, so treats them less like human, the poor and privileges the wealthy. So what we can kind of see, this is the overall point talking about social inequality, and that Dickens is actually being scathing of this social inequality, and he's actually being scathing of the system that dehumanizes, that treats them less than human, and exploits the lower social classes, but the upper classes get to privilege from it. So what I'm going to show you now is how this would link to other characters. So then basically, if this came up in the exam or whatever came up in the exam, you could use this, adapt it to the word from the question, and then you could pick a character to specifically focus on. So Scrooge, of course, Scrooge is the obvious one. He represents the cold-hearted, self-interested upper class who ignore the suffering around them. So we very clearly see that Scrooge is parsimonious, so he's stingy, he's apathetic, he has no emotions, particularly towards the lower social classes. Then we've got Bob Cratchit. He embodies the working poor, he's dignified, loving, but exploited and struggling. So we can see if Scrooge is an emblem, it's like a symbol of the upper class, the privileged wealthy, we can see Bob Cratchit as a comparison is an emblem, so again, symbol of the lower social classes, the poor in society who are exploited by the upper classes as represented by Scrooge. Fred, he symbolises, remember Fred is Scrooge's nephew, he symbolises generosity and social conscience. And just so you know, conscience is conscience, knowing right from wrong. So social conscience is knowing right from wrong in society. Challenging his uncle's indifference. So we get to see here's a really good comparison between Scrooge and Fred. Scrooge's apathy, so his lack of emotion, he's very emotionally distant and cold, really actually contrasts Fred's generosity. The Ghost of Christmas Present acts as a moral guide, revealing the harsh realities of poverty and the injustice of blaming the poor. So we get to see that the Ghost of Christmas Present really focuses on the social injustices in society, illustrating that to Scrooge, which of course is Dickens' way of illustrating that to his upper class readership. And Tiny Tim is a representation of innocent suffering and the consequences of societal neglect. So Tiny Tim is Bob Cratchit's son, and we get to see that the death of Tiny Tim, as shown by the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, that Tiny Tim dies, which of course is a representation of the dehumanizing treatment of the lower social classes. And if you go onto the Light Up Hub, we have some really insane analysis on all the key characters. So for example, like Scrooge, we've got all of the key themes broken down. For the Ghost of Christmas Past, we've got all of the different quotes. Let's say if we looked at selfishness, for example, you'll see here that we've got the key quotes and analysis. You get grade 9 quotes analysis for every single quote that you can just adapt in the exam. You'll get how it links to context, you'll get how it links to wow ideas, how it links to Dickens' intentions, all done for you. But also, because we know there's not that much time before the exams, right? If you go on this little toggle at the top of the Light Up Hub, you can actually see in the last minute revision, there is a video that summarises the whole of A Christmas Carol in just 52 minutes and goes through everything you need to know summarised in terms of quotes, analysis. We've got keywords, we've got context, we've got key themes, we've got Dickens' intentions, we've got key quote overviews. So you could just watch that 52-minute long video paired with this and basically be sorted for the exam. And then an evidence we could use to support the idea of the social injustice is, are there no prisons and the union workhouses? So his rhetorical questions echo real attitudes at the time, exposing the cruelty of institutional responses to poverty, and the idea that, of course, Scrooge is an emblem, he is a symbol of the upper classes and who these upper class individuals perpetuate, so they kind of continue on this social inequality. Bob Cratchit, he ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt to play at blind man's buff. Despite hardship, Bob values joy and family, a direct contrast to Scrooge's materialism. Again, we get to see that even though these lower social classes or the poor get dehumanized, we get to see them in a very human way in the fact that Dickens presents them as moral and family first, which of course contrasts the upper classes. Fred, his wealth is of no use to him. He doesn't do any good with it. This is in stave 1. Fred critiques the hoarding of wealth, reflecting Dickens' own views on social responsibility. So anything to do with social inequality, we could actually see that Fred is a reflection of Dickens' view on it, and he used him as a bit as a benchmark of how individuals should act in society. Ghost of Christmas Present, the boy's ignorance, the girl's want. So this is an allegorical children personify society's failings. Allegorical means they're intended to teach. A warning to the upper classes about neglecting the vulnerable and how if we continue to neglect them, there'll be this continual cycle of poverty. And then Tiny Tim, God bless us, everyone. Stave 3, his innocence and suffering highlight the human cost of inequality and neglect. So it's very interesting, of course, that Dickens uses Tiny Tim as a character, uses him as a child, because again, it really reinforces that there's this lack of compassion in society, so much so they would let innocent children like Tiny Tim suffer just because they're part of the lower social class. Now, how it adapt to other themes. So I want to show you that even if this didn't come up, even if like social inequality didn't come up, how you could actually link it. So if anything about redemption came up, redemption means being saved from sin, we can link it to how social awareness is key to Scrooge's moral transformation and also the transformation for society. That basically social inequality could be solved if individuals have this redemption and social awareness. Family, the Cratchits' unity contrasts with Scrooge's isolation in the fact that we get to see this very united front in terms of the Cratchits and how it's a complete antithesis to Scrooge. Responsibility, Dickens argues that individuals in society must care for the disadvantaged. And again, we see that with the Cratchits in the fact that the Cratchits do have this suffering and they're ceaselessly neglected, and not rightfully so. They are good moral people, but they're neglected due to these prejudices that individuals like Scrooge have. When I say prejudices, it's like these beliefs that aren't really rooted in fact, but just based on what he's heard. And change, injustice can be addressed through compassion and reform. So this is how it could kind of link to any other key themes, and the fact that you could kind of adapt the beginning topic sentence and then you could choose which character you'd focus your paragraph on, and then you could just adapt it in this way. And then point on key idea number 2, the supernatural are a moral catalyst through which Dickens forces both characters and readers to confront uncomfortable truths about societal issues and their personal involvement with this. So we can actually see that Dickens uses the ghost not only to teach Scrooge a lesson, but to also teach the reader a lesson. So just as Scrooge is reflecting on his past, his present, and his future, it makes the reader do the same thing. It makes them reflect on their own actions in the past. How has that contributed to them in the present? How will their future be shaped by these actions? And that is what it allows both the reader and Scrooge to reflect on. So Scrooge is visited by the spirits who reveal his past, present, and future, forcing him to reckon with his moral failings. So it forces him to confront his past, although he doesn't really confront it when he gets his past. He puts the cap on the Ghost of Christmas Past head. He doesn't want anything to do with it. But then he becomes more accepting as he comes to visit more ghosts. Marley's ghost acts as a warning figure, showing the consequences of life without compassion. And of course, Marley is Scrooge's ex-business partner, so it holds a lot more weight because they were very similar in their approach to life, and Marley is there to warn Scrooge. The Ghost of Christmas Past forces Scrooge to relive moments of innocence, regret, and emotional loss. So it gets Scrooge to really look back on his past, and that kind of kickstarts his reflection of how that is affecting him in his present. Also allows us as a reader to understand how Scrooge's past affects his present. The Ghost of Christmas Present reveals the richness of life and injustice Scrooge has ignored, and particularly linking back to social injustice that we just spoke about, really highlighting these prejudices, so these untrue beliefs about the lower social classes. And then the Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come symbolises death and moral reckonings, coming face to face with his morality, evoking fear to prompt change. So we can see all of the ghosts act as these catalysts. They kickstart this change in Scrooge. And of course, we get to see, as the reader does, with Scrooge's change in his reflection, we as a reader get that insight too. So some evidence for each of them. Marley's ghost, I wear the chain I forged in life. So Marley's suffering represents the burdens, the kind of weight of selfishness, and serves as a warning to change. Ghost of Christmas Past, would you so soon put out with worldly hands the light I give? So the ghost light symbolises truth and memory, and Scrooge tries to suppress it. So he tries to put that extinguisher cap on it. He tries to suppress it because he doesn't want to be basically reckoned with the truth. Ghost of Christmas Present, if these shadows remain unaltered by the future, the child will die. This is a brutal reminder of the consequences of inaction, particularly regarding poverty and in relation to children as well, being the most innocent people in society, and how they are basically at the mercy, the consequence of this upper class ignorance. Scrooge, I will honour Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all year. This is in stave 4. So after the supernatural journey, so this is during Stay 4, when he's been visited by the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come, Scrooge pledges for transformation. The ghost's mission had been fulfilled. So we get to see this idea of the change and that the ghosts have been successful in sparking this change in Scrooge. And then the phantom slowly, gravely, silently and approach. This is the ghost of Christmas Yet to Come. Its silence and darkness evoke death and judgment, forcing Scrooge to confront his legacy, confronting how his past and his present actions will lead to this very bleak future. And then how this could be adapted to other themes. So even if the supernatural didn't come up, how could we link it? Anything to do with redemption. The supernatural enables Scrooge's change and his redemption, so being saved from sin, so how it catalyzes and kickstarts that. Memory and regret. Ghosts force Scrooge to reflect on his past. So again, kind of thinking about the messages that the ghosts teach, and that's how we can kind of link the supernatural. Morality. The spirits act as moral agents. So think about they're there to evoke a sense of morality, teaching Scrooge to value kindness and empathy. And we get to see that because, of course, in Stay 5, he does have this transformation. We see he's very moral, he's very empathetic, and he has this true kindness. And then time. The ghosts manipulate time to give Scrooge perspective. So we can see, of course, literally through the ghosts, Marley, ghosts of past, present, and yet to come, they try and manipulate time in order to give him perspective and allowing him to have this moral awakening. And then lastly, point or key idea number 3. So redemption, so being saved from sin. It's essential to social progress, illustrating how personal transformation can inspire wider moral responsibility and challenge the apathy, meaning lack of care, embedded in Victorian society. So the idea that Dickens is illustrating that redemption is essential. It's an essential tool for Victorian society. And he constructs Scrooge as a microcosm. Now, a microcosm is something small representing something larger. So Scrooge is one small character, but he represents at large this upper class within society. So illustrating how this, if one individual can change like Scrooge, then everybody should be able to change. And think Scrooge changed, he became kind to the Cratchits. If then everybody changed in society and had this redemption, then everybody would be kind to the poor and it would solve these social issues. And then Scrooge undergoes a complete transformation from misanthropic miser, meaning miser being stingy, to generous benefactor, so basically meaning he becomes this generous individual, he becomes very charitable. Fred offers Scrooge warmth and forgiveness even when rejected, embodying hope for redemption. So again, we see Fred is really a benchmark for redemption and change, because even though Scrooge is absolutely horrible to him, and of course Scrooge is his uncle, he still remains very benevolent. Benevolent means loving and caring, and we see him, he really gives that hope for redemption because he's related to Scrooge. So if he's like that, we hope that Scrooge can be like that too. Bob Cratchit responds to mistreatment with grace, making Scrooge's redemption possible through contrast. So again, he does not try go against Scrooge. He's not rude to Scrooge. He accepts it with grace. He's very accepting of Scrooge's mistreatment of him and still remains to be very compassionate and a good worker. Tiny Tim acts as a moral catalyst. So catalyst means it kickstarts something. His vulnerability symbolises the stakes of Scrooge's transformation. So the idea of if Scrooge doesn't transform, he doesn't have this redemption, there is a lot at stake. And of course, if Tiny Tim is a symbol of the lower social classes, it shows the reader that there's a lot at stake for a lack of social change. And then the ghosts, they guide Scrooge through self-reflection, giving him the tools to redeem himself. So again, they catalyse, they kickstart his redemption, they give him the tools to which he changes for Act 5. And then evidence. When Scrooge says, "I'm not the man I was," this is Stay 4. This is a declaration of inner change, showing Scrooge's awareness and desire to be different, showing how he has really embarked on this pathway of redemption. He wants to change. Scrooge, "I will live in the past, the present, and the future." This is also in Stay 4. This embraces of his lessons of each ghost, and it shows his commitment to ongoing change. Fred, "Let him in. It is at mercy he didn't shake his arm off." So Fred, even when Scrooge comes in Stay 5 and comes to Fred's house for Christmas, he doesn't turn him away. He's very joyfully accepting, and the power of forgiveness shows this human warmth. Again, shows this redemption and how he was always a benchmark for Scrooge's redemption. Cratchit family, they were not a handsome family, but they were happy, grateful, pleased with one another. The Cratchits become a model of what Scrooge lacks but comes to value. So we get kind of see this redemption in Scrooge. He begins to value family, as we see with Cratchits. Scrooge's final line, God bless us, everyone. So this is echoing Tiny Tim. This line seals Scrooge's redemption and alignment with the moral heart of the story. So we get to see he's really redeemed, he's aligned, and it is used by Dickens to show how if everybody did that in society, there would be this social justice. And then lastly, how we'd actually adapt it to other themes is there's social injustice. So Scrooge's redemption is tied to his acceptance of a social responsibility. So we get to see his redemption is directly tied to his responsibility, and his responsibility leads to more social justice, as we see with his relationship with the Cratchits. Family relationships, redemption allows Scrooge to reconnect with others. We see his reconnection with Fred, which is directly one of his family members, but we also see his connection with the Cratchits, which become this, this metaphorical family. The supernatural, redemption is only made possible through ghostly intervention. So, of course, we see that redemption is directly as a result of the ghost involvement. And then time and memory, reflecting on the past allows characters to change their future. And we see that with Scrooge, his acknowledgement and his analysis of his past, his present, and his future allowed him to embark on this pathway of redemption. So if you did like this, guys, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure you pair this with the last minute revision video on the Light Up Hub, because if you use these two videos, I promise you, you'll be absolutely sorted for A Christmas Carol.